any discussion around our genital urinary area, our pelvic floor, is going to leave people in a better place. Like we've all said here, it's kind of this enigma. It's this area that's been forgotten, neglected. It's good to have this different fractions as a physician, you with your Pilates and then your kind of designed apparel, kind of talk about the different aspects here for our audience.
So today is our second episode of Happy Healthy Vaginas. And today, again, I'm joined by two badass women, Dr. Fenwa and Jana like banana. That's going to stick with my head. And today we're here to talk about all things urinary incontinence and how you can create an environment that makes you feel more comfortable, especially if you're dealing with some uncomfortable issues like urinary incontinence and just things being a little moist down there, more moist than we want it to be. Dr. Fenwa, could you please introduce yourself to our audience? Who are you? Why are you amazing? Blessings us with your presence.
I am Dr. Milhouse. I am a urologist, board certified urologist. I'm fellowship trained in female pelvic medicine and reconstructive surgery, which is a really long way to say urogynecology, basically. I've been in practice for almost 9+ years now. And I am an owner of my own practice in the last year called Down There Urology in Chicago. I kind of took to social media probably 3-4 years ago as a way to educate people, because what I was seeing is that this down there region was an enigma to most people, especially vulva owners and even to in the medical community. And so I wanted to destigmatize, educate, and I used education plus humor to do that, because a lot of these problems, a lot of us go through, but we hide silently, and we think we're alone when we are not. And so that is my passion. Through that, I was discovered by the powers that be and landed a pilot episode on TLC called Doctor Down Below, which was a lot of fun, and we hope gets picked up for a series that is in the works. But right now, I'm just loving building my own practice and helping patients with their issues. So
content is amazing. It's like edutaining, and like you found that really like perfect blend. And so again, just appreciate you being here today.
So my story is I was in the corporate world and I was gifted a pain journey. It started as a digestive pain, undiagnosed, and anyone that's been in pain for any amount of time knows it doesn't just stay in one area. And so I found myself as a 21-year-old on 11 different medications with a lot of headaches, gut pain, and all of a sudden pelvic floor pain. And I didn't think that happened to 21-year-olds. I thought it happened maybe if you just had a baby, but mostly for women that were going through menopause. And so I was told by my medical team that they believed that the pain was in my head and I was seeking attention. And about 6 months after that, I found Pilates, went to my first Pilates mat class, and literally after 16 weeks of breathing, moving, my body started to heal itself. I was off all my medications, and it was like I was gifted this second chance. And I knew that I had some story to share. I could share my experience with other women who might have, fallen through the cracks like I did. And so I left my corporate job, started teaching Pilates, got certified out of my home as a hobby. That grew into a Pilates, a commercial Pilates studio. That grew into a Pilates studio and an integrated wellness clinic. Grew that to a team of 60 clinicians, administrators, and instructors. And of course, it included, pelvic floor physical therapy. And I became really interested in the pelvic floor when I would teach my classes. These women who knew me, liked me, trusted me, as soon as I used the word pelvic floor or started talking about incontinence, they would get weird. They would stop making eye contact with me. They would become rigid. And I became very curious as to why this is a group of muscles, just like my deltoid, just like my glutes. Why can't we talk about it in a really matter-of-fact way? And that's really become my mission. Like, the latest stat I've seen is that 1 in 2 women is dealing with some sort of pelvic floor dysfunction. So like Dr. Fenwa said, you're not alone. We need information so that we can become educated and inspired to impact change, when we know that a large percentage of pelvic floor dysfunction can be rooted in the way we sit, the way we stand. We stop using our diaphragm muscle to breathe, which is a main connector to the pelvic floor. And so that's why I'm so passionate about just, joining women like this to start the conversation, or maybe shift the conversation. It's been muted for way too long.
Amazing. And I'll follow up. So my name is Mitch. I'm the CEO of Oya Femtech Apparel. Oya is a Nigerian warrior goddess, represents rebirth in storms. And we thought that was a badass name for a sportswear company dedicated to fighting feminine health issues. So we make non-toxic sportswear apparel like tops and leggings, as well as biker shorts, that supports feminine health through ventilation, moisture absorption, as well as just not having toxic materials and substances in the fabric. And we are hosting this podcast because we're really focused on building a community where women can be educated about feminine health issues and they can feel comfortable talking about them. Because Lord knows we're not all getting these conversations from our mom or our friend group. So I want to start with the first question that our audience posed for us. So how common is urinary incontinence? Like who has it? Like what type of person has it? When do people start getting it?
Since most of our audiences probably has a vulva, a lot of the things that we are going to talk about is mostly looking at women, but at least 1 in 3 vulva owners or women have incontinence. And urinary incontinence, just so anybody knows, is any amount of leakage that is unintended. Any amount of loss of urine. It could be a drop, or it could be I completely emptied my bladder. Whenever I say leakage, it tends to patients assume that, or people assume that I'm talking about a certain amount, and it isn't. And so any kind of incontinence, at least 1 in 3 women, the numbers are probably underreported because this is a problem that people tend to hide. You can hide incontinence. You can wear all black. You can not go out. You can, do all sorts of maneuvers where depends in pads, and never tell anybody. Don't tell your doctor. These are actually issues that people, I keep saying patients because patients are people, but people don't even like to bring up to their physicians or their doctors. A lot of misconceptions around just thinking it's normal, it's a part of life, there's nothing that can be done, I'm too embarrassed, etc. I'm too young to have this, so therefore I'm too embarrassed to ask, all those things.
It is about a year ago, I would say, I learned, so the main nerve that runs from the brain to the pelvic floor region, the genitals, is called the pudendal nerve. And when I learned this next little bit of information I'm going to share with you, it gave so much clarity, I feel, into why, like Dr. Fenwa said, it's underreported. So the Latin root of the word pudendal means ashamed. And when I learned that, it was like a mic drop, because I was like, this nerve is both a motor nerve and a sensory nerve. So it's a communication highway, and, all the sensations from pleasure through to pain. And the Latin root of this nerve is rooted in the frequency and the energy of ashamedness. And so is it no wonder that we, like I said, we stay muted about it? It's more common than we think. And it's not just for women that are, 50 and older. So the fact, Mitch, that you're bringing this to a platform for a brand that is like athletic wear for all women, it is how we start to shift this conversation.
Yeah, and we see it a lot in women athletes. So I don't know if you are on TikTok, where it's like the conversations are, should women be peeing at the gym? I don't know if you've been seeing this with like powerlifting, which is not, no one wants to do that, right? But I think it's shifting away from that stigma and that shame to realizing there's something you can do to fix it. right? It's not just like an issue that you're stuck with for the rest of your life. There are tools available to help you with it. So moving into the next question, why am I getting so many UTIs? So this is from one of our members of our communities. What should I do? Do you both see? I mean, I don't know, Jana. Do people talk to you about UTIs? People talk to me about UTIs. People talk to me about all sorts of issues, but I definitely hear a lot. So maybe Dr. Milhouse, we could start with you.
People definitely talk to me about UTIs all day long. I don't know why this person has UTIs. I don't know this person. Okay. So in fairness, I cannot.
Fair. I take that. I take fair. There was no details.
Yes. Right. In general, 1 in 4 women, vulva owners, has recurrent UTIs. Recurrent UTIs is defined as 3 or more.
1 in 4.
1 in 4. 3 or more culture-proven symptomatic UTI episodes in a year, or 2 or more in 6 months. Okay, so UTIs are extraordinarily common if you have a vagina. Okay, in fact, the lifetime risk of having a UTI as a woman is over 50%. So most of us will have a UTI. Okay, in our life, great, fine, I have a UTI, but recurrent UTIs can be really affect somebody's quality of life. And again, about 1 in 4 women are sufferers. The urethra is short. Female urethra is short. So a lot of the why we don't know, except for its anatomy. There's been research to see if there are certain genes. Is there a hereditary component? We haven't elucidated kind of down to the gene or anything why this woman gets it and these women don't. But in general, our anatomy is part of the reason why we women, compared to penis owners, have a much higher risk of UTIs because our urethra is short. The other thing is that if you live long enough, you'll go through menopause, and menopause is a risk factor for UTIs. Menopause is so evil. Menopause wreaks havoc on our flora and our defenses in our vulva. The vulva is the part that we see when we look with a mirror. That's not our vagina. Our vagina is inside. So the urethra, where we pee out of, sits in the vulva. And when we go through menopause, a lot of things change. The lining of the vulva gets more sensitive. The pH gets higher, which is not what we want. We want it more acidic. And there's less lactobacillus, that's the good bacteria, around. And so all of these factors increase the risk of UTIs. I see tons of patients that are like, I never got a UTI before, but now I'm in my 50s and I'm starting to get more and more UTIs. What's happening? Also, we know that penetration is a risk factor for UTIs. So the vehicle of penetration allows for bacteria to be kind of swept along and get in close proximity to the opening of the urethra. It's not because somebody's dirty or you don't know how to clean yourself or any of those things. It's just a matter of mechanism. So these are all really common factors that make it so common in women.
We've also seen a lot of women sitting in moist apparel. Like when they say they leak or there's chafing and there's a lot of bacteria built up and they stay in it, or I think another version of that is swimsuits. So when you're staying in these fabrics that don't breathe, that are have a lot of moisture, that's just not great. It's just not great. So again, not really a doctor out here, but just living from personal experience and our customers, get you something that breathes. Don't stay in these wetsuits or anything like that. But it's just so interesting because the more that I hear about menopause and being a woman as I reach my 30s, I think when I was in my 20s, I was just an athlete and I didn't really care. I was I'm just going to tough it through, right? And now I'm starting to think about having a baby and a family, and I'm gentling out, and I'm just wow, it's kind of like a war zone with my vagina. You never know. There's just new things that could attack it every other day.
Yes. Yes.
Jana, is there anything that you wanted to add to that?
The only thing I wanted to add, I don't, obviously, if someone's coming with a UTI, that is way out of my scope of practice. So I'm always going to refer out. But what I end up seeing is the guarding and the whole, right? Because it's uncomfortable. So we see more tension being held in through the pelvic floor, which of course, a tight muscle is not a strong muscle. Tight does not equal strong, ladies. Tight just means tight, and tight can be just as dysfunctional as not enough tone or weak. So, if you're on this UTI hamster wheel, it's important to understand that there is that, yes, the physical aspect of the UTI, but it's also impacting the pelvic floor. And then I'll have clients that will say, well, I don't want to drink as much water because I don't want to pee all the time because it's so painful. And then what do we end up with? We end up with a bladder that has highly, highly concentrated urine, which just exacerbates the problem, right? So there's like all of these little moments in these experiences, and, how do we end up preventing them versus just like fixing this one and just awaiting for the next bout to happen? That's really, I think, an important message to send to our audience.
So I know some of my friends, or like some of our community members, are really about this natural kick. And for UTIs, you're typically prescribed antibiotics, right? And so you get like a course, but if you have recurrent, like a lot of women don't want to keep taking these antibiotics, so they'll start taking natural supplements like D-mannose. Has that been proven effective, or is that something like, how should women be treating that?
Not rigorously. So there's some, low level early data where they looked at D-mannose as a way to flush out and to treat symptomatic UTIs, and it suggested that there might be some benefit. Certainly D-mannose brand companies do market themselves as not only, hey, take this to prevent it, but here you can try to take this to flush it. This is how I see things. We definitely overprescribe antibiotics in general. And I am all for a patient who wants to limit antibiotics. I am very much an antibiotic steward. Any patient or person who has followed me knows this, because I see far too many people getting knee-jerk antibiotics. I mean, you can get an antibiotic without ever even submitting a urine these days, which is problematic. We forgot that our bodies kind of know how to try to work this out too. Like our bodies are designed to try to fight this. All right. Most of us can probably naturally flush out a UTI with time. Okay. So whether that's D-mannose that can do it, or just time and, hydration, most of us can eventually flush out a UTI. The symptoms obviously suck in the process. So I'm all for, let's manage the symptoms. Let's see what's growing and treat if you have symptoms. I personally have done this. I have had UTIs and I don't run and grab an antibiotic. I can easily get an antibiotic. I'm a doctor. What I do is I drink lots of water. I may take Pyridium or Azo to help with the pain, and I try to flush it out myself. So yes, that is perfectly fine and dandy for people who want to naturally see if they can go without getting antibiotics. And again, it's far more often that we overprescribe than undertreat.
Next question. Is it bad to wear a panty liner every day?
I mean, no, not inherently. You know what I'm saying? I mean, panty liners are there to absorb moisture, whether that moisture is from leakage, whether that is from menstruals, which that's from discharge. So it's not inherently bad for your body to have a panty liner. What you want to do is make sure you're getting that that you have a good absorption. Okay. And so that you're not sitting in wetness for a prolonged period. Sitting in wetness can break down your skin. It can increase yeast, skin yeast infections. It can just make it easier for other infections to happen, because now that skin is not, the defenses are lowered. And so wear a panty liner, change it often if it is damp. And the only time I would say don't I think it might be bad to wear panty liner or pads or anything is when you're sleeping. I really think if you wear something all day and your down there does not get allowed to breathe a little bit, these are the patients that you look and their vulvas are red, and they're miserable. They're itchy, they're red. It's like a huge diaper rash. And so I think for the most part, even my leaky patients, if they leak at night, I say, you know what? Sleep on a I'd rather you sleep naked on a towel than wear a pad overnight and underwear, because then it's at least breathing and getting some air.
That wholeheartedly. We're all about letting the vagina breathe. Just naturally, like, it's its own self-cleaning oven. Let it breathe, let it do its thing. And we get a lot of customers who will wear panty liners all the time, but sit in that moisture and then start getting like yeast infections or UTIs or things like that because they're so embarrassed about the thought of potentially leaking. And then also, not all panty liners are even made with good materials. Like, some of these things have like toxins in them, like cigarettes or things that kill rats. Like, why is that on your vagina? I'm not a doctor, but I don't think that's healthy. So yeah, don't do that. So if you are going to wear panty liners, maybe look for like organic ones or like non-toxic, and then totally here for letting the vagina breathe, especially at night. The other thing I wanted to point out is sometimes women, again, are so focused on managing symptoms and shame that they're not actually resolving the problem. So if you're leaking all the time, it's not just let me put a panty liner on every day. Sometimes it's like, let me go see a pelvic floor specialist, or let me go see a urologist and talk to someone about these issues and figure out if there's something else something else going on. Or maybe you have BV odor because you're getting reoccurring BV. Whatever these issues are, there are doctors and communities meant to help you. So don't just suffer in them in silence and have a inflamed red vulva for years, because I also hear that from a lot of customers.
We women are really good at putting up with stuff. We're really, really good
Say it louder for the people in the back.
a lot of things. And so we put up with painful sex, we put up with leaky bladders, we put up with dry vaginas, we put up with hot flashes, we put up with low libido, we put up with a lot of things. Lack of orgasms, it's countless. And I will say, this is where the penis owners differ. I tell you this, when something is wrong with a man's dick, he is going to go see a doctor. Okay. And like, there might just be one new freckle on that penis. He is going to come and see a urologist and say, what is this? This is not normal. I need to make sure that my dick is going to last another 100 years. Okay. So that's where the men have us beat. They don't take chances with their penis. They are on top of it. Where we are like, it's like it's a foreign land to us down there. It's foreign. A lot of us have never even looked. Things are coming out. We're just like, yeah, it's been happening for 10 years. I've just kind of like sucked it up. Things don't feel right down there. Oh, I've just kind of dealt with it. We deal with a far too much bullshit when it comes to our genital urinary health. Sorry. Soapbox done.
You're fine. No, we part of this also, when we do pop-ups, is really around education, and we have this thing on our IG which is called Vagina IQ. And what I started learning is people really think they pee out of their clitoris. Like, they've never actually looked at it. Like, they've never looked at their vagina. And I mean like adults or even young women. I met this one girl who was already on birth control. She was a teenager, but she didn't even know what her clitoris was. And I was like, something about that seems like it's the patriarchy to me. Like, why are you on birth control and you don't know what your clitoris is or where it's located?
Yeah, for sure. We don't know. I did a funny reel, and it was based on a patient who, like others, thought she had peed out of her clitoris the whole life. And she came to me because she had looked, and she was like, there's a new hole this is a new hole that wasn't there. And something's wrong with me. And it's a normal urethra. It's a normal urethral meatus. And it's always been there. She just didn't realize it. And I'm having to kind of do anatomy 101 and explain to her that she never peed out of her clitoris. She was mistaken. This is her urethra. Hi, meet your urethra. Hello. Okay. How are you? You know, I see this all the time.
Are there any tools that you can buy to help manage urinary incontinence or lots of moisture?
Well, okay. Number one, like you said, if you have incontinence is never normal. It's never normal. Listen, it's never normal. All right. So certainly there are things you can do to manage it, but please go and at least sit and talk to your doctor about it. Like you may decide, I don't want to do any of that stuff. Okay. I don't want to take your meds. I don't want to do this. I don't want to go to pelvic floor physical therapy. I don't want to do that procedure. Fair enough. But there are things that almost certainly you haven't heard that can help your problem. Again, this is one of those things where patients assume there's not that much that can be done when there's a whole slew of things that can be done. So I wouldn't just manage it. I don't care how old you are or how young you are. Okay. Sit down and bring it up. If it bothers you, if you're leaking, rather not leak, sit down and see somebody. See a urologist, a urogynecologist, pelvic floor physical therapist, somebody. Okay. Now, managing it, obviously there's pads, there are underwear, there are companies who make absorbent underwear. So if you don't want to wear a pad, it's like this panty that is padded and is a little more comfortable, doesn't feel like you're wearing a pad. There are obviously a host of like pelvic floor items to try to strengthen your pelvic floor for leakage. This is where I get a little bit because like Jana has said, tight isn't good. Tight isn't strong. Okay. And far too many and pelvic floor Kegels done without the direction of a specialist can lead to a different problem, can lead to more problems. Okay. We have a lot of messaging that is saying tighter, Kegel, and yes, these can help with leakage, but you need to get assessed to make sure that you are using it appropriately. So I'm not a huge proponent of, I shouldn't say this. I'm cautious about these, patient-directed Kegel strengthening things that with the absence of like a specialist who hasn't done the evaluation.
So, I mean, this is my jam. I mean, this is what I try and help women understand is that even something as simple as breathing with your diaphragm. So the diaphragm is this, it looks like a mushroom cap or an open umbrella. It's a big, beautiful dome-shaped muscle that sits in our rib cage. What a lot of women don't realize is that when we stop breathing with that muscle, because it is geographically located above the pelvic floor girdle, it talks like they talk to each other. So as young, as teenagers, as young women, when we're trying to like make our bodies as narrow as we can, we actually stop breathing with our diaphragm. And because our body is so brilliant, it reassigns the breath work to keep us living to these little muscles in our neck called the scalenes and the sternocleidomastoids. So you're turning off this massive muscle, which when you watch a newborn baby breathe, when they're laying on their back, their belly is rising and following. It's the most pure version of diaphragmatic breathing. And simply by reteaching that muscle how to work, it is going to start to get the pelvic floor to respond. And so breath work can be incredibly healing and can bring life back to that part of the body. The other piece to recognize is that any muscle in your body that is lacking oxygen-rich and nutrient-rich blood is not going to be functional, right? When that connective tissue, that fascia gets restricted, we're dehydrated, we've got, tech posture, we get things like frozen shoulder, our joints start to become, the itises, the bursitis or the tendonitis in the soft tissue of the body. Those are all outcomes of, not sitting properly, not standing properly, having really cute shoes that look so good, but functionally are really tough on the body. So that was my challenge, is how do you bring this oxygen rich, nutrient rich blood to the pelvic floor so that through better posture, better breathing, and that literally is how the Cooch Ball was born, was that it was simply just meant as a tool for women to sit on for 3 minutes a day to just, first of all, start to realize that there is tissue down there that's living, to feel a little bit of tingliness, to feel a little bit of warmth, to feel a little bit of an ouch factor when that muscle is too tight. And like Dr. Fenwa was saying, is that we become so obsessed with all you got to do is Kegel, Kegel, Kegel. And we don't realize that, or we believe that incontinence equals a weak pelvic floor. But incontinence lives in those of us who hold tension, anxiety, and trauma in that beautiful magic cauldron known as our pelvis. And, looking at the anatomy, like we've talked about, touching it, knowing that it's a part of who we are is, I think a really important message. And so for me, obviously, because the Cooch Ball is, my product, and I've known many, many women over the past 3 years since I've launched it, it at least starts the conversation. That can be the little, kick in the butt that they sometimes need to then go on and have a conversation with their medical practitioner, because now they feel like they can at least give some feedback on what they're experiencing.
Trapping trauma in the body. Like, I have trauma in the body. This is not my therapy session, but at #32, trying to release the trauma, y'all. Like, we're trying went to the yoga, and it was a kind of similar to what you were saying. She kept having me do breath work and like connect with all the muscles in my body. And she kept being like, unclench your jaw. And like, I don't think I realized how much tension I was holding in my jaw and like in my back. And so I don't think I store that much tension in my pelvis, but like just knowing how much tension I store in other areas, I can completely see that being a thing, and women just needing, calm down, sis. The world isn't going to fall down tomorrow, and whatever got you that stressed, maybe you need to get away from it. So maybe that might be part of the preventative care. On the Oya front, in terms of products, our products are not absorbent enough to catch a full urine flow, like urine stream. But they do absorb light moisture. So we absorb about a panty liner and a half worth of moisture. And our inserts are reusable and removable. So you can leak in it. The fabric dries pretty quickly, and then put another one in. So like sorority girls who train with our stuff call it the workout and switch out method. But don't say that you were going to have a full urine stream and try Oya and then leave us a bad review online, because I never said that. Like, just being really clear for people who watch this video, I've never said a full urine stream. Maybe a sneeze or it's whatever. But the last thing that I would say is, don't wear period underwear at the gym, right? Like, whether you're dealing with urinary incontinence or just lots of sweat, I see a lot of women being like, I'm just gonna wear this period underwear at the gym. And I'm like, girl, that's a recipe for a yeast infection. Because now you're just sitting there and all this, like, it's not breathing. Like, just let it breathe. Let the vagina breathe.
Any discussion around our genital urinary area, our pelvic floor, is going to leave people in a better place. Like we've all said here, it's kind of this enigma. It's this area that's been forgotten, neglected. I think there's a lot of things in our life, like, wearing high heels, and I'm not going to sit on the toilet seat, and I'm going to wear this waist trainer that kind of wreak havoc on our pelvic floor unknowingly. And so it's good to have this kind of different fractions as a physician, you with your Pilates and that work, and then your kind of designed apparel, kind of talk about the different aspects here for our audience.
And I think for me, sometimes this information can feel overwhelming and hard to, kind of read between the lines, but I just want to remind the community, the women listening, that, this information, there's going to be pieces of this conversation that are going to resonate with you, that are, maybe you might have been like, what? I didn't realize that, right? when that information resonates, that really is a good indicator that there's something, it's like it spoke to your soul. Don't worry about, maybe you took pages and pages of notes. What is the one or two things that you heard that feels like maybe you could start to breathe in a different way, or maybe you can, not wear, like Dr. Fenwa said, sleep naked on a towel at night, to like, what is the one thing? And if you can take one thing from today's conversation and live it, that's when I feel like we just return to that form of that divine women's wisdom with our bodies that I think we've lost a little bit. And it's time that we reclaim it.
I'm definitely in my masculine, and I definitely ignore a lot of things, and I just suffered through it. And so I'm getting more into the phase where I'm just like, this doesn't work. Something new I'm saying is I'm sad. That's a new one for me. Like, and I'm not sure if you're from Chicago, Dr. Milhouse, but like, I'm from Philadelphia and I went to school on the South Side. So like, that's just not something that I learned how to say. I don't know how to say my vagina's broken or my heart feels sad. So I'm just learning these things as I age. So Jana, I completely agree. So with that, we're here to support your vagina, and so excited. And thank you everybody for episode number 2.